Hey guys, look what I got. It's an Atlas 7B. And missing a couple of things here. That little door though, I have it, it's right down there. But I'm about to take it in the basement. Before I do though, I want to give it a quick cleanup. Just to knock the big dirt off of it. And we're going to do a restoration on this baby. Here we go. Now, I'm not really trying to get this thing perfectly clean. I just want to be able to carry it through the house and down to the basement without big chunks of dirt and grease falling everywhere. Now, when I purchased this shaper, it was a couple of years ago. And the guy who I brought it from helped me lift it into my car. And then when I got it home, my son helped me lift it into the garage here. Now, one of the things I realized is this thing is extremely heavy. And so now I'm trying to take it apart to see if I can just pull some of the big parts off and carry them down individually so that I don't have to carry all that weight at one time. Now, in my mind, it's going to be real easy to pull off big chunks of it and take it into the basement. But what I don't know is this thing is an absolute puzzle. And without a parts diagram or watching some videos, it would take a long time to figure out how to get it apart enough to take it down there. So I struggle and struggle and struggle. So now I turn my attention to just trying to get off small pieces, and then hopefully I can get some big chunks off to lighten this thing up so I can get it downstairs. So now that I can't get the ram off and I'm starting to take off little things, I think I'll take the table off. And the table should be easy to get off if I get the plates that hold it on to the slideway. It should come off fairly easy. Wrong. So now I just start pulling off bolts and nuts of anything I can try to get off. I try to get off. Now there's a channel I watch called Rotary SMP, and he does very similar things to me. And we're both in the aviation industry, and he shares stories which I find very fascinating. And he said he had asked me, would I share some aviation stories? And I thought I'd give that a go on this video. So I thought since he's the one that asked me, I will answer a question that in a comment that he had asked me, which is, had I ever lost a jet engine? And the short answer to that is no. Professionally, I flew airplanes for 34 years. I have over 17,000 hours. And I started off in the Air Force. I flew F-16s, A's and B's. Now, just so you know, a B model is the two-seat version of the A model, and I flew C's and D's. And the D model is the two-seat model of the C model. And every squadron had a couple of two-seaters, and that's just in case somebody needed to have an instructor with them to get them back up to speed. But the F-16 is a single-seat, single-engine fighter. Now, as you can see here, I've pretty much given up on getting some of the bigger chunks off of getting this thing into the basement. And I'm going with plan C. I've gone through plan A and B, nothing's worked. So I decide to get this thing to where my son and I can carry it on our shoulders down into the basement.
5-1. Are you feeling Are you feeling the whoopage? I can go back. Like that. Cut it down to 5-3 and then you 5-2. Now cut it down to 5.
Okay, once I got this thing in the basement, there was a lot of days, a lot of weeks of frustration, and I didn't show how I got the ram off or how I got the table off. I was so frustrated that I didn't film that. Anyway, I got the ram off, I got the table off, and now we're going to continue the strip down. An important restoration tip. It's best to look at the parts diagram and know how things are put together before taking them apart, because it makes taking it apart so much easier. Now, I didn't do that, and of course they have set screw after set screw after set screw on this machine, so yikes. Just take a look at the diagram and figure out how things are put together. Now, just to clarify those two-seat models of the F-16 in the squadron, when I say get somebody up to speed, if somebody hadn't flown in a while, had been sick, and they needed an instructor to go with them, then you had the two-seat models that they could put an instructor in the back seat, then the guy who's getting instructed gets in the front seat, because basically you're always going to be a front seater unless you're an instructor. And get the guy back up to ready status in the squadron. Now, the reason I'm bringing up the F-16 is because the original question is, have I ever lost an engine? The answer is no. However, I have had engine issues in the F-16. Now, just to clarify that so that everybody knows, I've had 3 malfunctions with engines, and 2 of them were my fault. And the other one was explainable, and I'll explain that here in a second. Now, when I was brand new in the F-16, I was in the F-16A model, and it had the Pratt & Whitney F-100 engine, which was a very, very awesome engine, but it was dumb, so the pilot had to be smart. Ergo, my 2 engine malfunctions. The first one I had was, I can't remember if we called it an AB stall, an afterburner stall, or afterburner blowout. And the afterburner on that engine had a regime in which you could light the afterburner, and you had to check to make sure you was in that regime, and if you were not, you didn't light it. But I was in the heat of a battle in a dogfight, and I needed the afterburner, so I pushed it up in the afterburner range, and nothing happened. And then all of a sudden, a massive explosion. And I mean, the explosion blew my feet up off the rudder pedals. Now, of course, my heart is in my throat, and then I hear my flight lead, who was the instructor, saying, knock it off, knock it off, knock it off. So I acknowledged that, and then he asked me, how's your engine? And I said, it's running fine. That's the first thing I looked at, and the core of that motor, dead on. So he says, safe up your airplane, we're going home. So I made sure my airplane's safe. Now, what that means is I got to make sure that my master arm switch is in the off position so that nothing, missiles, bullets, or bombs can come off that airplane. So I safed the airplane up, and we headed on back home, and found out that I had lit the afterburner in the wrong regime, and he said he saw fire blow 30 feet out of my intake and 30 feet out of my exhaust. But the core of that motor, everything was fine. It was just I did something dumb and had an afterburner blowout. Now, the screws I'm trying to take off of here are Phillips, but they're a huge Phillips, and it's a Phillips number 4. I didn't know that at the time, but I'm using a flat screwdriver, and I can get all but I think 2 of them out. Well, it tends to always be just one screw that keeps you held up, and what I did was got with McMaster-Carr, got a Phillips head that's number 4. I didn't even know they had that, but turns out that's the right size to fit that. And I hit it one time, and there she goes. So let's see if we can continue on with taking this thing apart here. Now a little Allen head on a socket. See if we can get these things out. Now, some of you that are more observant realizes that this is a little cleaner than when I started out. And I had to make a decision. This was all done at different times and stuff. And so I'm breaking it down into the disassembly, the cleaning and paint removal. And that's why you won't see me clean it here. You just see that certain times parts will be cleaner. Whoa. Okay. I banged it up off the register. Now I see how that thing goes on there. All right. Now how do I get that out? Well, let's try it from this side. Let's see. There's a lock collar on here. So that afterburner stall that I had was just raw fuel dumping back in the burner can there at the wrong regime, and then it lit off and it was a massive explosion. I did that as a young wingman when I first got to the squadron, and I did it another time when I was a little more experienced but still young, but after that I didn't do it anymore. All right, there's a little something there. Maybe that'll lead to a little something more. Oh, awesome. Awesome. Okay. That helps. Yep. Still got more to figure out. Alright, looking at the parts diagram, this looks like it threads on there, so I put these on here, and guys, I didn't really bite down on it tight. Oh, I bit down on it tight, and it didn't put any marks in it. Now that looks like that's going to come off. All right. All right. Excellent. Okay. Okay. That's good news. Just good news. Now, let's see if we can get this locking collar off. Well, let's see if that locking collar is threaded on there. It might be threaded on there. Well, let's see if this one. There it goes. It's moving. It is threaded on. Man, I'm glad I didn't. Glad I didn't manhandle that thing. All right. Still not quite ready. Okay. So the third engine malfunction I had was in an F-16C model, and that had the General Electric 110 in it, the GE 110, which was a smart engine. And the difference between that and the dumb engine is the General Electric engine, if you slam it up into the full afterburner, and the engine says, I know he wants full power, I can't give that to him at this time, but I'll give him as the max that I can give him at this time. That's kind of machined on there. So that's got really good fit. Okay, now how do I get this thing off? This thing should start wanting to come off of there. So that smart engine would say, hey, that guy wants max power, and I'll feed it to him, and I'll give him afterburner when I can, and it would slowly give you the afterburner when it could. So the third engine malfunction happened when I was a very experienced flight lead, and once again I was flying the F-16C with the GE Smart engine, and I was teaching a young wingman how to do a high aspect ratio gunshot, which just means a gunshot that would hit the airplane at 90 degrees instead of the typical 30 degrees. And he he kind of overshot me, and he got his airplane so close to me that I went through his jet wash probably at about maybe 50 feet. And going through jet wash, most people don't know what that feels like, but it's like hitting a brick wall. And so it was like just a quick turbulent thing, but just boom. And then it, nothing happened. Everything was good. But when I landed, the crew chief said, "Hey, your computer was tripped when you got down here." So I checked it, and you had a compressor stall. And it says, he tells me that you had a compressor stall, and the engine relit itself within 1/10 of a second. And it knew that there was nothing else wrong, so it didn't even tell you. So that's what I mean by a smart engine. It didn't even have to let me know that it had a compressor stall from going through that jet wash. But that was the only three things that happened to me engine wise in 34 years of flying. So the airline industry is extremely safe when it comes to that, because number one, it doesn't have the afterburners, and number two, you don't usually go really close flying like we did in these fighters. And you know so yeah, the airline industry is a really safe industry. And just so you know what a compressor stall is, imagine your piston engine losing all your compression. So when we have a compressor stall, it's varying degrees of that. And without compression, you get no thrust, and without thrust, you're turning into a glider, which is never good for powered airplanes, that is. So just to sum it up, in 34 years of flying, guys, I've only had 3 engine malfunctions in the military, 2 of which was my fault. One was a known fault of flying through jet wash too close. And so in the airline industry, it has been absolutely no problems at all for me, and I'm pretty thankful for that. So there you have it. So as you can see, I'm really struggling trying to get that thing out of there, but it took some ingenuity, and bada bing, bada boom, it eventually came out. Now, it may seem easy because you see just minutes of what takes hours in videos, but I'll tell you, this fought me every step of the way, from start to finish. But every screw, every nut, everything fought me. It was not an easy disassembly whatsoever. Starting to think that this may be threaded in there, so I am going to see. I don't have a spanner that big, so just kind of see if I can maybe get that thing to move a little bit here. So I just grabbed me 2 pieces of scrap, this one here and this one, and I turned it down to the size that'll fit in here. And once again, I'm going to see if this thing is threaded in there. All right. Well, I'm glad I found this website that showed there's a set screw in here. So let's see if we can get that baby out. Oh, yeah. then that should be able to twist out. Let me give that a shot. Alright, I'm going to try some force here. There it goes. Right. Wow. Okay. Okay, now let's see if we can get the other side. It's got one of them doing it. See if we can get it out of there. Oh, there's this one. Right here. Now once I got the set screw out and the locking collar off of there, I realized I tried, like I had what on the other side, using some stuff of my own, but then I realized I'll buy a spanner. Well, let's see if this little spanner wrench works. Check that out. Awesome. Alright, that little gear has to get off that shaft somehow, and we'll drive that whole shaft out. I don't know how to do it yet, but I'm looking. Now I've looked for 7B shaper restoration videos that get detailed, and there are none. So I don't know what I'm doing here, and I'm just trying to figure out how to get this thing apart. Well, once that gets cleaned up, you can see that there is a pin there and a pin right there. So I'm going to tappity-tap those out of there and see if we can get the shaft out of there without damaging it. Now guys, there are no restoration videos on the Atlas 7B Shaper that shows how all this works. So that's one of the reasons why I'm doing it. But right now, I don't realize it, but I don't need to be knocking those pins out of there. So don't do that. You can just, the whole shaft comes out. Now the only reason I know this comes out in one part is because I saw pictures of a guy who was restoring one and it was all one part. So I'm like, I'll just knock it out. Now when you see the state of this grease in here, I'm so glad I decided to tear this thing down and really clean it up. Now guys, what you're going to see is things that look like they're out of sequence because I'll try to tear one thing down, can't figure it out, so I start on another thing while I'm figuring the other thing out. At least that way the project just continues to progress. Now to kind of explain a little bit what the afterburner is. The afterburner gives you an insane amount of thrust very quickly. It will throw your head back. Now it's insanely simple. It's just basically dumping raw fuel into the exhaust, and it's extremely sophisticated because if you don't do it right, things can go really, really bad. But with the dumb engine that I flew with the Pratt & Whitney, it had 5 stages of afterburner, and in each stage it was metered a little bit. So in stage 1 you'd feel stage 1 light, and then as you're progressing in that you'd feel the thrust, and then boom, you'd feel it would hit, you'd feel stage 2 light, and so on through stage 5. But with the General Electric motor, which was a smart motor, the afterburner was, we call it a smooth light afterburner. It would give you min and max afterburner. So once you lit the afterburner, it was infinitely variable from minimum to maximum. So instead of staging it in, it metered it in. So right there is a pin in a bevel gear, and I need to get that pin out in order to get that screw out and get the ram taken apart. And I learned that from a forum. And there it is. All right. All right, now that bevel gear in there can hopefully move now. Or should I? Oh yeah, sliding on the shaft. Let's see if I can rotate the shaft out of there now. All right. All right. Now when I said there are set screws everywhere, there's a set screw that's holding the screw that I'm trying to remove, and it's taking a whole bunch of force, and I'm thinking it's just rusty, but it's a set screw holding it, and so I kind of gnarl up the threads of the screw that I'm removing. So the technique for removing these little rivets in there, if you can't drive them out, is you put a little slot in them like a slot head screwdriver, and you can kind of screw them out. Well, the one works fine, but the other one is causing me some trouble. Well, after trying several different ways, I decided just to grind the head off and then drill that little rivet out. Try a different size one. So with my handheld drill, I bought some left-hand drill bits and that didn't work. So I start thinking again what I'm going to do and start disassembling yet another part. This thing is so tight in there. It has not moved in years and years. I just want to clean up a small section to see how it's going to turn out. And now back to the disassembly. Now this thing is a monster to get off because the screws that hold the table onto that cross-sliding thing, they're hidden behind the table. So you have to slide it to get the bolts out, and I can't get to it. So I start with the gibs and try to remove the gibs. And this takes a while to get this thing freed up. So I soaked this thing for days in this WD-40 and finally got the gib to move. And once the gib could move, I thought it was going to slide easily, but it doesn't. All right, I took that over to the press and just pushed it, got it started. And now I'm going to see if I can get this baby off of there. Let's see if we can loosen these up, might help a little bit. I'd have to take that back to the press. Well, over at the press I got it to move, but the other way. It kind of like got stuck. Not exactly sure why. That'll allow me to get these off. Yowza. Alright. Plan B. Alright, plan B. And thankfully I have those Allens, those hexes on sockets, so that gives me a lot more leverage. Also, I'm so glad I stopped pressing when it stopped, because there is a nut there in the back of there that would have broken the casting or broken that, so I'm glad I didn't continue pressing with it. Take off both of these, but I'm gonna have to. Just gonna have to keep the shims where they're supposed to go. Okay, good. So that thing is keeping everything in. All right. Sit. Put this here. So now I keep the shims where they go, the screws where they go, just to keep everything organized. And now the easy part, to get this little foot thing out of there. It's going to be real easy, right? Wrong. It's all loosened up, the set screw, but it sure doesn't want to come out of there. Okay, time to bring out the big guns. See if I can get this foot to move. Ah, there it goes. Looks like it's coming. All right. Wow. That was a fight. Okay. I wonder if I can get these things out. I was able to get it out, but I had to go take it and put it in the press to press them out. I thought with a little WD-40 that I could get the vice jaws to move with a handle on there, but I didn't realize that the screw in there, the lead screw, that's broken. Every now and then I just have to do a motivation move, and polishing that up on the wire wheel. Seeing that clean steel under there, that's a motivator. And also seeing the numbers under there, that's a motivator. So like I said, every now and then I got to do something to keep me motivated, and that kind of stuff motivates me. So that lead screw on there, that screw on there had been hacked. So now I got to make another one. And guys, that concludes part 1 of the restoration of this Atlas 7B Shaper. And that was our teardown. Stay tuned for our next exciting episode, which is cleanup and plate removal. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope to see you next time.